PIC count totals. Of course, those of you who know, our PIC count has an unsheltered and sheltered aspect to it. So our total numbers for 2020, they went down by 7%. Our unsheltered count number went up over 100%, and our sheltered went down by 9%. And we'll talk a little bit more about why we think the unsheltered was that much higher. But those are the totals. That our information about the PIC count also is all available on our website if people have more questions and want to dig into the totals a little more. But that's what that looks like. So the shelter, I just want to talk about the sheltered count for 1 second. The sheltered count, the way we do it is based primarily on HMIS information that is cross-referenced with information that we receive from our shelter providers. Go ahead, Therese, that's fine. So last year, well, I should say this year, 2020, we conducted it on the 23rd and 24th of January. We are also allowed to do a smaller scale Saturday count where we find people on Saturday and ask them where they were on Thursday night. We are allowed to count those numbers as well. We tend to try to send folks out on the Saturday count to areas where we were not able to canvass very well on the night of the count. And we also worked very well with Volunteer New York. We've done that for the past few years in putting together our care packages, and also the Mercy College Food Pantry assisted us. We had our teams trained that night, and we had a team building pizza party to make sure everybody was ready. We also made great strides with our county IT department, who provided us with phones that had the survey loaded on it and pre-tested. I think these are all things that helped us have a more successful count. You can advance the slide, Therese. Thank you. So the biggest thing that was different for 2020 is that we had 18 teams comprised of 18 paid team leaders and approximately 40 volunteers, which is the most we've ever had. So obviously we were in more places, we were more robust, so our numbers were probably higher, partly because of that. Also, our weather, it was about 35 degrees out, no wind, no rain, no snow, and no ice, so people were out. And so people were easy to find. And another huge difference is that on the Friday and Tuesday before the count, PIC count representatives were sent to 30 of our 40 police departments in Westchester to engage them around the event, obtain reliable location data, and make a plan for the PIC count night. So our organization was really stepped up in a way that we had not been able to do before, partly for two reasons. We now had Therese, and we also had an intern, Michelle Landry, who was integral in helping us get all of this done. As everyone knows, it's become an event that has a tremendous amount of moving parts, and our team of Allison and Yoav and Therese and Michelle really pulled it together. So you can advance. Some of the anecdotal feedback that we received from people doing the count is that people talked about their reluctance to enter the drop-in system. A lot of times we wonder if people are just not aware of the services that are there, but most of them were. They know how to access shelters, they just were choosing not to for various reasons. They also seem to be looking for assistance with food more than other years. They were asking if we had more care packages or more sandwiches. And the other, probably one of the most concerning things is that there was very little overlap from people that we knew already. So there were a lot of people, generally our outreach teams will tell us who they typically see. And there were a lot of additional people on the list that were not our typical outside unsheltered folks. Go ahead, Trace. Thank you. And then the follow-up that we conduct is our street homeless work group meets right after, like within the week, with our staff to actually receive the information of everyone that was found so that they can try to relocate and re-engage with those folks. The other thing that we do is we try to look at trends and use that data to inform our decisions. Unfortunately, 2020 has not been a year where there has been a lot of opportunity until very recently to address some of these things. But what you're looking at now is this PowerPoint I developed to present to DSS administrative staff. So one of the things that I made sure to put on here is what we felt and what the CoC board felt we need is more flexible outreach coverage, particularly, of course, in Yonkers and Mount Vernon, that can go out after hours and do like a pick count like type of response on a regular basis, as opposed to us doing that once a year. I mean, we have tremendously wonderful outreach staff that go above and beyond all the time, but their hours, of course, are limited. They're usually working during the day. And it would be great to also have some kind of shift in the evening and at night to catch folks as well, to try to engage them in services. So that was our 2020 pick count. And as I said, our 2021 may not quite look the same, but we will be planning for that. The next thing I wanted to review with everybody is our website improvements. And I think we've been talking about that for the last few years as well. Ever since we launched a website, we've been making strides to improve it. And a lot of that is based on your feedback. And also even when I just look into it, I always want to look with the lens of if I was a provider looking for information, or if I was someone from the general public who just wanted to know about our CoC, how is it laid out? So we've done a lot of work in terms of changing the layout and the format so that things are easier to find. But we're always looking for feedback. So if you're ever using our website, and I'm hoping people are, please feel free to contact Therese about any improvements that we can make. One thing I want to point out is that a few months ago, we opened up a CoC dashboard that can show people a snapshot of our data pulled from HMIS. So thank you to Daniel Gore and Therese for working on this together and creating really a great resource tool that will show people this first page is our system indicators that HUD looks at for us. And they can be toggled in terms of what quarter you want to look at or what household type. There's also, what I want to point out is there is where it says how to use, there's a box with a little mailbox that says you can send information to our team if you have questions that cannot be answered here. So one tab is these system indicators. The next tab is the length of time homeless. And if you rest your mouse on just about anything, it will tell you where that information comes from or give you a little more information on those data points. And then there's the positive outcomes, which shows exit to permanent housing. And then the last one is demographics. So I encourage people to play with this, use it. I will tell you, when people contact me for data, this may be the first place that I ask them to look at. And then if we can't help here, that's what that contact us button is for. You can always email Therese and say, listen, this is the information that I need. I can't get it from the dashboard, but I need it for an RFP or something else that you're working on. We can assist with that. The other thing I wanted to point out, and some of you know this, if you have applied for funding, that we have also tried to structure our letter of support policies and procedures. So thanks to Therese, we've worked really hard on putting together a letter of support request form that we implemented, I think, a couple months ago for the first time with the eSHI RFPs, where we ask providers to submit the form, and then we're able to track it in a much better way, in a more useful way, and a more transparent way for our board. So if you are looking for a letter of support, that's where you're going to find that information. I think if you go right to that ribbon on the top, yep, and then a letter of support is there. And then what happens is a Word document pops up that includes not only the information that we're requesting, but also has a link to our HIC and PIT information, because a lot of times people need that for their RFPs as well. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point out is that in September, we launched the Anti-Racism Evaluation and Advocacy Committee, or the Area C, is what the kids are calling it. It is co-chaired by Allison McSpadden and Therese Thomas, with assistance from Delia Austin of DCMH. And it's a very dynamic group. It's, as I said, it just launched. So if you want to get in on the ground floor, now's the time. We are definitely looking for more membership, including and especially direct care staff, because a lot of what this, what we'd like to see the Area C doing is really looking at our policies, procedures, and tools to make sure that we are addressing any racial disparity that comes across in either how we're doing what we do, or how that information is presented, or how questions are asked, in terms of making sure that everyone is getting equal access to our services. And I think I think right on the home page, right, Therese, is where the flyer is that you made up. Oh, I'm sorry. I know that recently you just did a really beautiful flyer too, to make sure.
It's on the news page, actually.
On the news page, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's not it.
So check that out. And if you have questions, Therese or Allison are available for that. Okay. The other thing I wanted to make sure that we talked about is in 2020, we, I say we, but really between Therese and Yoav and Daniel and Carl, they really put together an addressing racial disparity analysis. HUD had a couple of years ago had asked us to employ a tool that they developed to analyze our racial equity in our system. So we redid that, re-employed that tool in 2020. And our findings were such, the major finding was that Hispanic households were less likely to become homeless due to poverty. The finding that was the same from 2019 to 2020 was that African Americans were not more likely to be in poverty, but they were more likely to be in poverty and homeless as opposed to any other racial or ethnic group. So so what Therese did was, over the summer, she did one based on race, and then we dug a little deeper into the services around Hispanics, and found that that was true for them as well, that they were less likely to become homeless due to poverty. So through the Area C, we may be looking at that more closely, and also at the board level. What I didn't mention is that we are going to have a Q&A at the end, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but we'll probably answer them a little later. The other thing, of course, that we need to talk about is our response to COVID-19. I really want to take just a minute to shout out to our COC team, Daniel Gore, who's our HMIS administrator, Yoav Spiegel, Therese Thomas, Allison, Jo Marie Tarshun, and Craig Wong of DSS. We really are blessed with a phenomenal team who really, without us saying anything, everybody sort of had their own specialties around how we were going to do what we do in terms of COVID. So, you know, Daniel has always been wonderful at reminding us how HMIS can be used to help us to get things done, no matter what it is. And COVID was no different. He was right on the cutting edge of knowing how we can utilize it. We did institute an at-risk tier system where we could help make prioritization decisions and referral decisions based not only on the typical things that we use for coordinated entry, like length of stay and the CHAT score, but also add the COVID tier to those decisions so that we can try to get people who are highest risk out of the shelters quicker. And when DSS opened up their, what we call the QHAB, which is their quarantine hotel facility for people who need to be quarantined, Daniel was right on top of it to create a project for that specific hotel so that we always knew where clients were. So if someone left the shelter to go to the QHAB, everyone knew where that person was, because then housing providers could still keep track of them, as well as the shelter staff and the COC staff. Yoav was really our point person on waivers. So HUD did allow at 3 different times during the pandemic waivers that we could employ. And so we worked hard on figuring out which ones made the most sense for us. We ended up employing 9 different waivers, which some of them are still in effect, and they are, I'm not gonna go over all of them because that would be really long and boring, but they focused on 2 major goals. One of them was to loosen documentation requirements to allow faster exits from shelters to housing, and loosening documentation requirements for housing providers so that they could prioritize safety of staff and clients. So some of the things that would require staff to enter people's homes were lifted temporarily so that we could reduce the risk. And Therese, we also, I have to do a shout out to her. She was completely on top of getting information regarding food distribution to everyone. And so to the point where people would be like, enough already, but there wasn't enough already. It was, you know, we wanted to make sure that everyone had that information because, you know, that affects folks, you know, so personally. And we were really trying to make sure that everybody knew. So her main job was to make sure that those daily emails went out as to where people could find food if they were experiencing food instability. And Allison, of course, as always, putting out fires, making sure that we were really still doing our day-to-day operations and the things that we need to do. And also making sure that any emergency situations and crises we were coming up against, which allowed Carl and I to really look at more macro type stuff and system stuff, because we knew that the day-to-day was going on. And Joe Marie and Craig keeping their meetings and referrals on track and running smoothly. I was impressed that really, I mean, March and April were quiet in terms of referrals, but I was so impressed with our housing providers that they were continuing to try to house people whenever they possibly could, and in using as many safety precautions as they could to try to get people out of the shelters. And they really have not looked back since then, and we appreciate that so much. And again, I know I've said this many, many times, but we're so fortunate to have such committed, responsive agency members in our COC, and during COVID, it was no different. There were many decisions that we needed to make quickly, and having providers respond even when they were all trying to pivot their own agencies and their own organizations to keep themselves afloat has really been remarkable. I think, you know, as a COC, what we've tried to do throughout the pandemic is to keep our members informed, provide support wherever we can, and provide useful information not only for them, but for their clients and their staff. And we will, of course, continue to do that. But I think that's everything that we did. The only other thing that we wanted to say is that we also pivoted to Zoom ourselves pretty successfully. I know sometimes we have a glitch here and there, but other than that, I think, you know, I think everybody would agree that we've found this at DCMH with our events as well, is that one of the positives about transitioning to Zoom is that more people participate. I mean, we had our meeting on priorities in June, and we had the highest participation we've ever had with 63 people on our Zoom, which was really awesome. So I think we will definitely take that into the future, even when we can be in person, of how do we do some kind of hybrid situation or something like that, where we can get more, we become more accessible through this pandemic, which is fantastic. And it's allowed us to create more relationships with different community providers and really broadened our scope a little bit. So the last thing, I'm going to turn things over to Craig to talk about the expansions and improvements that have been made on our COC training subcommittee.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. So as you all know, this year has been a very challenging year for everyone, personally, professionally, and, just continuing to do the work that we have been doing. As you all can probably remember in previous years, we've had a number of different trainings. Our spring symposiums, particularly, was something that was huge that we would put together. We would spend a lot of time and effort to bring everybody together to train. But because of the pandemic, things have just, kind of everyone is just thrown off course. However, with that said, I'm so pleased to, just to see how we've adjusted. We have started our trainings online, Zoom trainings. So far we've done our coordinated entry training. That was a tremendous turnout. We exceeded the number of people that we could actually host on Zoom. And with that, we're also recording the trainings to post them to our website. So, agencies can go ahead and review at future times. When new staff comes into the agency, they can go back and review the material. So in essence, a difficult situation has allowed us to evolve and ultimately do things in a better way. We feel that by continuing the trainings on Zoom and recording them, one, we have more attendance, and two, we can record the trainings and post them to the website for folks to review at a later date. So we're very excited about that. We've done 2 trainings so far on Zoom. We're looking to do, our next training is going to be for what we call super users, those individuals that run HMIS reports and go a little deeper into the HMI system. We also want to look at doing trainings for our housing providers, the things that they get audited on a annual basis. Record those trainings and have them up on the website so folks can review and be educated and trained on that at their own pace. So we're very excited about that. We thank everyone for participating in the training, for giving us feedback. Feedback is so important. It helps us to determine how we're going to do the next steps and what is important to you guys. So continue to give us your feedback, continue to support the trainings. Questions are great. And so we look forward to just doing things better and more efficient as far as our trainings are concerned. So thank you all.
Thank you, Craig. So Carl, you're up.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Carl Bertrand, co-chair with Annette, and I'm going to be talking about the goals for the coming year. And the first thing on our agenda is managing the contract renewal process, because the applications still haven't been released. And we have 1,250 COC funded bids, and the funding for 722 of them expires January 31st. And in the past, we would often have those contracts expire without a new contract yet in place, but we always had a federal grant award already, so the county would float the money. So far we don't. So we've been in touch with Vincent Hom from HUD and with Supportive Housing Network of New York and Nita Lowy. And it appears it's really congressional negotiations that are tied up with stopping the budget shutdown and COVID relief and everything else. So we were in touch with them yesterday, I believe, and they say she's very aware of it and they're not going to tell us how it winds up because no one knows yet. And we're hoping that what they do is authorize HUD to do all the renewals, at least with very little paperwork. That's the most attractive solution that they could do. And then new projects might be slower, but it's the renewals that are key. We'll keep you posted, obviously. The second is to prepare for the continued impacts of the pandemic. And one of the things is the experts are predicting an eviction tsunami. The housing courts were closed for 4 months and been operating at low capacity for like 5 months. So there's a backlog of cases in Westchester that might be as high as 5,000 cases that would be coming through during that time in a normal year. But then in addition, we had the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, and the census says that 16% of all tenant households in America were behind on their rent in October. And obviously everyone who's behind is not going to be evicted, but 16% of Westchester tenant households is 21,000. So we know 5,000 cases is too low because that's just backlog, and 21,000 is too high. But somewhere between that number are likely to be filed in the next couple of months. So we're preparing for that tsunami the best we can. One thing the Eviction Prevention Network has done is it started meeting again with all the eviction prevention providers. They're doing an updated resource list because there's a lot of new several rounds of ESG money from several levels of government. So they're trying to create an updated resource list of who's got what. The other thing they did was they created a single form that you don't have to keep providing the same information. If 4 agencies need to cooperate to cover your arrears, you can do it once and they can share it and everyone will have the information they need. And then last year, the year before, I guess, almost all the prevention programs started using HMIS. So we now have data on them. And what that allows us potentially to do in the near future is to look at who keeps facing eviction crises repeatedly. And for those people, maybe we need more than a short-term solution. We need some longer-term rent subsidies, budget counseling, case management, whatever. But we could try to prioritize the people with the most frequent crises and come up with better solutions for them and have it all data-driven. The other thing we're doing is in Westchester, over 90% of the tenants going to housing court in an eviction case don't have attorneys. And in Yonkers, they hear as many as 100 cases in 2 hours, which means it's 72 seconds from the moment your name is called to the moment you sit down with your case being over. And most people who come in there without an attorney wind up losing their cases in their homes. So many of the CoC board members are part of the Right to Counsel Coalition that's encouraging Westchester County to follow the New York City lead and cities around the country and guarantee counsel for people facing eviction. And we're hopeful that there'll be progress on that. The other thing we're doing is just input to local pandemic relief planning. So Yonkers, Mount Vernon, the county have all gotten additional ESG and additional ESG COVID money, several rounds apiece. And we've been providing input into that, including advocating for a pilot program to do at least one-time COVID testing in the shelters to see if we have the widespread asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic spread that other cities like California and San Francisco and Boston have reported, and that we don't know because we don't do that testing. And it's going to wind up being an issue with us trying to work with the health department to, when vaccinations become available, to encourage people to take them and to help work out the mechanics of that. Another agenda item that's been going on for several years is to support the expansion of housing options for doubled up people. So several years ago, we worked with Maria McGinty, who had the BOCES data on the McKinney-Vento doubled up families. And when we compared it with our CoC data, we found that 2/3 of Westchester's homeless were not in the shelter system, they were doubled up. And we got the Westchester Children's Association to take that up as an agenda item for their board and they got a number of other people involved. They gave input to the city of Mount Vernon, who was planning its ESG COVID. And Sylvia should take a bow at this point, because they actually offered funding for doubled up families and for unaccompanied homeless youth who meet the McKinney-Vento and not the literally homeless definition. So it's the first time that someone's done that. They received several applications, and that's really exciting. We hope to expand that over the course of the next year and make sure that those first pilots are a success. Another agenda item, one of the things that helped us reduce veteran homelessness down to, at one point, just one person, was having HUD-VASH available with lifetime housing subsidies for all the VA eligible ones. And we've missed the last 2 rounds. And one year was because the director of Montrose decided we didn't need them. And then she was replaced, someone new came in. And then in the last round, we needed an immediate answer of whether the VA would support it. And they just couldn't respond fast enough. So we're going to be trying to coordinate with the Westchester County Office of Veteran Affairs and CVR and DHCR and Montrose to make sure everyone's lined up, and that the next time a notice comes out for more HUD-VASH, that Westchester's in line to get some. And then finally, we need to keep working to improve the way we get consumer input. And one possibility is that we might try to do virtual meetings and make it easier and eliminate travel barriers. And another way is, instead of trying to have just a separate committee, we'll be working with each of the COC contractors for you to build in your own consumer input mechanisms. Again, the city of Mount Vernon worked very hard to do that and is cutting edge. And so stay tuned, we'll need your help with all of those things. And the other change is that after over 10 years, Annette Rivolo is retiring as COC co-chair. So we should give her a round of applause. So thank you for everything you've done to make us so much more effective and professional. It's been a real honor to work with you. But starting January 1st, I'm going to have the honor of working with the new COC co-chair, and that's Craig Wong from DSS, who's been our DSS COC liaison for many years and is going to be wonderful. And Craig, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I just want to echo Carl's remarks in thanking Annette. She has done a superb job. I've been in my position for about 3 years now, and she's been a tremendous help to me, as I'm sure she has been to everyone on this line and those who are not able to get on. She never turns us away. She always has a response. At one point, she had to ask me, "Do you like me? Why do you keep sending people my way?" Because she had all the answers. Why not? But I'm just truly grateful for Annette, her service, her spirit of excellence and service. I have no delusions that I'll be able to fill her shoes, but the only hope that I have is that we have such a great team. We have such great shelters, staff, such great housing providers, such great individuals that work as part of our COC, that I think we can get it done. And I'm just a part of that team, and I hope to, contribute something as best as I can and continue to do the great work that we have. I think people don't realize that I think Westchester COC is really a model, I think, for the nation. I mean, HUD realizes it, other counties realizes it. You guys are really doing great work. We're doing great work. We're on the cutting edge. We're doing things that people haven't even thought of yet. So, I just hope we can just continue on that track, continue to be more dynamic, innovative, and most of all, continue to service those individuals that we're charged to serve. So with that, I will say I don't like long meetings. So I'm hoping maybe we can cut them down a little bit. And maybe Carl will be on board with me with that, hopefully. But anyway, I look forward to working with you all, just to continuing the progress that we've been making on the COC. And I love feedback. Please reach out to us with any feedback, what we can do different, how we can make things better. But, that's it. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I appreciate how diplomatic Craig is. So when he says that he hopes I'm on board, that means can he cut my mic when I'm going on too long? So speaking of that, let me now pass it to Annette and give her one more task for the COC co-chair, and that's to manage the selection of our at-large member.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Carl. And thank you, everybody. A lot of people have emailed me outside of our meetings and stuff to let me know how they feel about me stepping down. And thank you very much. It's been very, very, it's been overwhelming and very nice. And so I thank you for that. I thank you for thinking of me in that way. As I've said in a lot of our other meetings that, a couple things, I'm not completely going away. I will be involved in some of our subcommittees and I will be at the board meetings as the alternate for DCMH. Delia Austin will be the primary voting board member. So I'll still be hanging around. And so you can't get rid of me that easily. And the other thing that I have said before is that it's really, having this role with the COC and working with this particular COC, I have learned so much. It's been a highlight truly of my social work career, which I hate to say how many years that social work career has been, but it's definitely been something that I've been proud of and proud to be a part of. And that's really a testament to the members that we have and the team that we have and really how far we've come. So, so again, I thank you. I will see you guys around. And so we'll move on to our selection of our at-large members. I don't know if Grace or Anthony are on the call. If they want to say any words regarding their candidacy for the at-large. It doesn't seem like it.
Grace
But
was trying to log in. She sent me an email, but she was having some technical issues. So I don't know if she was able to join us.
okay. Well, I can speak on their behalf. I do know that they are very interested in continuing in this at-large position. The Bridge Fund has been, even before they had an at-large position, they were very involved in our COC activities, particularly when it comes to eviction prevention. I'm sure most of you know what the Bridge Fund does in terms of providing prevention loans and also funding to folks who are facing eviction and other housing crises. They've been an integral, they now also have new ESG funding. Some is COVID related and I believe some is not. So they've really become a force for helping us work with our other eviction prevention agencies in really organizing our response in terms of getting information out to people, working on the universal format, working on how we fit into coordinated entry. So it's definitely, that's what I can say about them. I also want to make sure that I am, do we have anybody in the chat, Allison, who has posted to be a candidate? I saw a flurry of stuff, but if there's anyone that's interested or their agency is interested, please either speak up or put something in the chat now. We'll give that a couple of minutes.
One thing I'd like to say, that the Bridge Fund used to just be the private funding component of our eviction prevention strategies, but they've taken a real leadership position. Grace is helping to coordinate the Eviction Prevention Network. She's co-chairing the Right to Counsel Coalition. They've begun accepting government money. They helped their board evolve so that they could do that. And one thing that's exciting is they want to develop programs here the way they are in New York City that's focused on housing strategies. So they're very open to moving in that direction. So it's a new chapter for them.
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, those are all good points. Okay, I did not hear from anybody else. We have nobody else in the chat, right?
No.
Okay, so what we will do, we still have to send the ballots out and we still have to have a formal vote. So that will happen after today's meeting. So if there's, and does anyone have any questions? Did anyone put any questions in the chat? Do we know?
No questions.
Okay, thanks, Trace. Is there anything else that anyone else wants to bring up or any other questions from the floor? Okay. And Trace, I'm gonna be very, I know that we're recording this, but can you also save the chat? I'm gonna be very selfish because I didn't get to read what everyone said, but it looked like you were saying some nice things. I would love to save that chat if we can, and me being not as technologically advanced as you guys, that would be great.
It saves automatically. I'll send it to you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you. Even better. And thank you. Thanks, everybody. What I also wanted to do is thank Lisa Lockley, our HUD representative, who I know is on this call. I can see her. So thank you for joining us, Lisa. And I'm sorry, I meant to contact you myself personally to let you know that I won't be the co-chair going forward, at least for the next 2 years. But I'll call you. Maybe we could chat about it when we both have some time. So,
Okay, great, thank you.
oh, there you are, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us today. Did you have any feedback or anything for us?
No, I do not have any feedback.
Okay. Okay. So we will touch base. And Carl, anything you have to say in closing?
Just that one thing I'd like to do in January is the COC is now doing semi-annual reports to OTDA about the volume and outcomes of all of our COC components. And we have almost everyone in HMIS, so we know prevention and shelter supplement, all sorts of stats. And I was able to compare the last 6 months during the pandemic to the prior 6 months. And things like fewer people on the streets because they found places to go, probably fewer in the shelter, more in housing, less housing turnover, interesting changes. So I'd like to discuss it in January, and we'll figure out with Craig whether we start with the Data and Systems Committee or whether it goes to the COC board, but to give you all a sense of how the pandemic has impacted the volume of what we do.
Okay.
That'll be an interesting.
And I just want to make one more push for the website to make sure you check the calendar for all our upcoming subcommittee meetings and meetings that we're having. And there's also on the website a description of every subcommittee we actively have going right now. So please feel free to attend or encourage your staff to attend. We'd love to have them. So thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday season and Happy New Year. All the best for 2021.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Vaccine for all.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.